The heavy metal door of the velvet lounge clicked shut as Rebecca turned the key, her heart pounding in the sudden silence of the empty lesbian bar. Zuri stood on the small stage, microphone still warm in her hand, the last notes of her closing song fading into the dim red lights that lined the walls of the downtown Chicago venue. Without a word, Rebecca crossed the room in 3 long strides and pulled Zuri into a kiss that had been building for months, their lips meeting with a quiet desperation that made the rest of the world disappear. When they finally pulled apart, Zuri's dark eyes sparkled with the same relief Rebecca felt. "Finally," Zuri whispered, her forehead resting against Rebecca's. Rebecca laughed softly, brushing a strand of Zuri's curly hair behind her ear. "Yeah, finally. Let's get out of here before the cleaning crew shows up." They grabbed their coats and slipped out the back alley, the cool night air of Chicago wrapping around them like a secret. Neither noticed the small security camera mounted above the stage, its red light blinking steadily. The next morning, Rebecca's phone erupted before her alarm even went off. She sat up in her tiny Wicker Park apartment, Zuri still asleep beside her, and stared at the screen. Dozens of notifications flooded in. Texts from coworkers, tags on Twitter, a TikTok link from the bar's own account. The thumbnail was unmistakable. 2 women kissing under the Velvet Lounge sign. The caption read, "Bartender locks up then locks lips with the singer. Lesbian bar goes viral overnight." Rebecca's stomach dropped so fast she felt dizzy. She shook Zuri awake. "Babe, you need to see this." Zuri grabbed her own phone and her face drained of color. The clip had already hit 2 million views. Comments poured in, some cheering finally some real representation, others calling it disgusting and bad for business. Local news stations were already reposting it with headlines like, "After Hours Romance Caught on Camera at Popular Lesbian Bar." Rebecca's hands shook as she read the latest text from Linda, the bar owner. "Harlan just called. He's furious. Get here now." Harlan Thompson was the investor who had sunk nearly $400,000 into renovating the Velvet Lounge last year, turning it from a struggling neighborhood spot into a sleek destination. He had big expansion plans, franchises, corporate events, maybe even a reality show tie-in. A viral kiss between staff and talent was not part of the brand he had sold to his conservative business partners. Rebecca and Zuri threw on clothes and raced across town, the morning traffic doing nothing to slow the panic rising in their chests. By the time they pushed through the back door of the bar, Linda was pacing in the office, her gray hair pulled into a tight ponytail. "He's threatening to sue for breach of contract and reputational damage. Says the video makes the place look unprofessional, and he's pulling the rest of his investment unless we fix this mess today." Rebecca sank into a chair, the weight of every late-night shift she had worked to keep the lights on pressing down on her. Zuri stood behind her, hands on her shoulders, but even that touch felt dangerous now. Outside, a small crowd of reporters had already gathered. Phones were held high, hoping for a glimpse of the 2 women at the center of the storm. Rebecca's conservative parents in Ohio started blowing up her phone, her mother crying, her father demanding to know if the rumors were true. Zuri's more progressive family in California was worried too, but for different reasons. Zuri's singing career was just starting to take off with festival bookings and a small record label interested. One scandal could kill it all. Rebecca stared at the paused video on her phone, the frame frozen on their kiss. 6 months of stolen glances, secret dates, and careful silence had vanished in a single security camera clip. Every decision from this moment forward felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. Protect the bar and her job by denying everything, or protect Zuri and the truth they had both fought so hard to keep alive. The clock on the wall ticked louder than it ever had. Linda slammed a folder on the desk. "Harlan wants a meeting at noon. He's bringing his lawyer. You 2 need a story and you need it fast." Rebecca looked up at Zuri, whose jaw was set in that stubborn way Rebecca had come to love and fear. The first crack in their world had already formed, and the pressure was only beginning. The rest of the morning blurred into strategy sessions and frantic calls. Rebecca's mind raced through every possible lie. It was a stage bit, they were rehearsing, it was a prank. Each one tasted like betrayal. Zuri kept saying, "We could just tell the truth." But truth had a price tag neither of them had calculated yet. By 11:30 the bar phone rang again. Another reporter, another demand for comment. Rebecca's hands were ice cold when she finally hung up. Outside the alley door a lone photographer waited, The flash went off as they stepped out for air, and Rebecca instinctively pulled Zuri behind her. In that split second she realized the choice wasn't just about today. It was about every tomorrow they still hoped to share. The investor's lawsuit threat wasn't just legal paperwork. It was a loaded gun pointed at the life they had quietly built together. The conference room at Harlan Thompson's downtown office smelled of expensive leather and fresh coffee, but the atmosphere was pure ice. Rebecca sat across from the investor, Zuri beside her, both of them in the same clothes they had thrown on that morning. Harlan, a silver-haired man in his late 50s with a handshake like a vice, slid a printed copy of the viral clip across the polished table. 4.2 million views as of 10 minutes ago, he said flatly. My partners in New York are already asking if I've lost my mind investing in a lesbian soap opera. Linda shifted uncomfortably beside them. Harlan's lawyer, a sharp woman named Ms. Delgado, opened a thick folder. The investment agreement contains a morality clause. Public conduct that damages the brand's reputation gives Mr. Thompson grounds to withdraw funding and pursue damages. We're looking at potential loss of future leases, sponsorships, and the entire rebrand campaign. Rebecca's mouth went dry. She had read that clause once months ago when she signed her new contract. It had seemed like standard corporate language then. Now it was a noose. Zuri reached under the table and squeezed her knee, a silent reminder that they were in this together. But the squeeze also carried the question neither had voiced yet. How far were they willing to go to stay together? Harlan leaned forward. I don't care what you do in private, but when it ends up on every phone in the city, it becomes my problem. Fix it. Issue a statement saying it was a misunderstanding, a rehearsal gone too far, whatever. Do it today or I pull the plug and sue for the remaining $200,000 I still owe on the renovation. Zuri's voice was steady but tight. And if we don't? Ms. Delgado smiled without warmth. Then we file by close of business tomorrow. The Velvet Lounge will be tied up in litigation for years. Good luck finding new investors after that. The meeting ended with a deadline. A public statement by 6 p.m. Rebecca and Zuri walked out into the cold Chicago wind feeling smaller than they had in years. On the sidewalk Zuri stopped, turning to face her. We can't lie, Becca. Not about this. Not about us. Rebecca wanted to agree. She wanted to be brave the way Zuri was. But her mind kept flashing to her mother's tearful voice on the phone that morning, to the stack of medical bills her father still carried from his heart surgery, to the fact that her bartending job paid for both their rent and Zuri's demo recordings. If we lose the bar, we lose everything, she whispered. My family barely talks to me as it is. If this blows up. They argued the entire walk back to the bar. Passers-by stared, phones already out. One teenager shouted, "You two are goals." Another muttered something ugly under his breath. The pressure was no longer theoretical, it was breathing down their necks in real time. Inside the Velvet Lounge the staff had gathered. Waitresses, security, even the daytime cook. Linda had closed the doors to the public. We're losing reservations by the hour, she said quietly. Some regulars are saying they don't feel safe coming in with all the cameras outside. Rebecca stood at the bar she had polished 1,000 times and felt it slipping away. Zuri climbed onto the same stage where the kiss had happened and tested the microphone, her voice cracking on the first note. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. At 4 o'clock Rebecca's phone rang, her older brother from Ohio. Mom's having a panic attack. Dad's talking about driving up here to talk sense into you. Becca, what the hell is going on? She hung up before she could answer, tears stinging her eyes. Zuri wrapped her arms around her from behind, but even that embrace felt watched. By 5:30 they had drafted 3 different statements. The first denied everything. The second called it a private moment between friends. The third simply said nothing at all. None of them felt right. Harlan texted Linda. Clock's ticking. Rebecca looked at Zuri, really looked at her. The woman who had sung love songs to her in empty bars for months, who had made her believe she could be both professional and in love. I don't want to lose you, she said. Zuri's answer was soft but fierce. Then don't make me choose between you and the truth. At 5:58 p.m. Linda hit send on the statement they had finally agreed on. A careful middle ground that neither confirmed nor denied but asked for privacy. The internet exploded anyway. Supporters flooded the bar's page with rainbow hearts while critics called for boycotts. Harlan's lawyer emailed within minutes. Not good enough. Papers will be filed in the morning. That night Rebecca and Zuri lay awake in the dark, the city lights flickering through the blinds. The lawsuit was no longer a threat. It was a promise. And somewhere between fear and love, the first real fracture in their relationship appeared. Not from lack of feeling, but from the terrifying weight of what protecting each other might actually cost. The lawsuit papers arrived by courier at 8:17 a.m., thick and official, demanding $250,000 in damages and immediate cessation of any scandalous conduct tied to the property. Rebecca read the words until they blurred. Zuri paced the kitchen, coffee forgotten. "We need a lawyer," she said. "A real one." They scraped together every dollar they had and met with a young LGBTQ+ rights attorney named Maya Torres in a tiny office above a coffee shop. Maya scanned the documents and shook her head. "This morality clause is aggressive, but it's also vague. We can fight it. The real problem is the court of public opinion. Your families, the media, the bar's future investors, everyone's watching." That afternoon Rebecca's parents showed up unannounced at her apartment. Her mother's eyes were red-rimmed. "We raised you better than this," she said, voice trembling. "Hiding in bars, kissing women on camera for the world to see. What about your future? What about grandchildren?" Her father stood silent, arms crossed, disappointment carved into every line of his face. Rebecca wanted to scream that she had never hidden who she was from them. She had simply stopped explaining. But the words stuck. Zuri's parents called from California on speakerphone, trying to be supportive but clearly worried. "Sweetheart, your label contact just emailed. They're reevaluating your demo. We love you but maybe lay low for a while." Zuri hung up and cried for the first time since the video dropped. Rebecca held her, but the space between them felt wider than the miles separating their families. By evening the media had camped outside both their homes. A local morning show ran a segment titled "Lesbian Bar Kiss." Love or publicity stunt? Clips of the video played on loop. Rebecca's boss at her second job, a straight sports bar, left a voicemail. "We're getting calls. Customers are uncomfortable. Maybe take some time off." The confrontation with Harlan came next. He summoned them back to his office, this time with a camera crew from a conservative news outlet waiting in the lobby. "Withdraw the statement you sent yesterday," he demanded. "Admit it was inappropriate behavior and promise it won't happen again. Do that and I'll reconsider the lawsuit." Zuri's eyes flashed. "You want us to apologize for being human?" Harlan shrugged. "I want my investment protected. The choice is yours." They left without agreeing. On the street Zuri stopped walking. "I can't do this anymore, Becca. I can't keep pretending the kiss was a mistake when it was the most honest thing I've done in years." Rebecca felt the words like a slap. "And I can't watch you lose your career because I was selfish enough to kiss you on camera." They argued in the middle of the sidewalk until a passerby filmed them. The new clip hit social media within minutes. Lesbian couple fighting after viral kiss scandal. The cycle spun faster. That night Rebecca sat alone on the fire escape while Zuri slept inside. She thought about every quiet sacrifice she had made. Missing family holidays, deleting old photos, never posting about the woman she loved. Silence had kept her safe once. Now it was suffocating them both. When she finally crawled into bed Zuri turned to her, eyes open in the dark. "If we fight the lawsuit together we come out publicly. No more hiding. Are you ready for that?" Rebecca didn't answer right away. The question hung between them like the lawsuit papers on the kitchen table. Heavy, unavoidable, and impossible to ignore. The courtroom corridor smelled of floor wax and anxiety. Rebecca adjusted her blazer for the third time while Maya Torres reviewed notes beside her. Zuri sat across the hall with her own small support circle, 2 friends from the music scene and her sister who had flown in overnight. The judge had granted an emergency hearing on Harlan's motion for a preliminary injunction. One wrong word today and the bar could be forced to close its doors pending trial. Inside the courtroom Harlan sat stone-faced, flanked by 2 lawyers. When the judge asked for opening statements Ms. Delgado rose. "Your Honor, my client invested in good faith. The public conduct of his employees has caused measurable financial harm. Cancelled events, lost sponsorships, reputational damage exceeding $200,000 already." Maya countered calmly. The clause in question targets immoral behavior. A consensual kiss between two adults in a private business after hours does not meet any legal definition of immorality, especially in a venue marketed to the LGBTQ community. Rebecca's hands shook in her lap. Every eye in the room seemed to judge not just the case but her entire life. When the judge asked if she wished to speak, she stood, voice steadier than she felt. The Velvet Lounge is more than a business. It's a safe place for people who have nowhere else to go. That kiss wasn't a stunt. It was two people who care about each other forgetting for one moment that the world was watching. The judge nodded but reserved ruling. Outside on the courthouse steps, cameras flashed. A reporter shoved a microphone at Rebecca. "Do you regret the kiss?" Zuri stepped forward before Rebecca could answer. "We regret nothing except the fact that love still has to be defended in court." The clip went viral again by lunch. Supporters started a GoFundMe for their legal fees. Detractors called for the bar's permanent closure. Rebecca's phone buzzed constantly, her brother offering reluctant support, her mother sending Bible verses, strangers offering prayers or threats. That evening back at the bar, Linda pulled them aside. "Harlan's willing to drop the suit if you both resign and sign NDAs. It's the cleanest way out." Zuri laughed bitterly. "Clean for him. Devastating for us." Rebecca stared at the stage where everything had started. Quitting would save the bar but kill the dream they had built together. Staying meant fighting a man with deeper pockets and a longer reach. They spent the night drafting counteroffers with Maya. Every paragraph felt like choosing between survival and self-respect. At 2 a.m. Zuri set her laptop aside and took Rebecca's face in her hands. "Whatever happens tomorrow, I choose you. Even if it costs me everything." Rebecca kissed her then, soft, deliberate, no cameras this time. But the kiss carried the taste of goodbye to the life they had known. The next morning the judge denied the injunction but scheduled full trial for 6 weeks later. Small victory, massive mountain still ahead. As they left the courthouse hand in hand for the first time in public, Rebecca felt both terrified and strangely free. The world had already seen their love. Now they had to decide if they were strong enough to live it out loud. Word count for File 4. 992. File 5. 6 weeks passed in a blur of depositions, media ambushes, and sleepless nights. The Velvet Lounge stayed open but attendance dropped 30%. Rebecca worked double shifts to cover the legal bills while Zuri's festival gigs dried up one by one. Their apartment became a war room of legal pads and coffee mugs. The night before the full trial, Rebecca found Zuri crying in the shower. "My label dropped me yesterday," she whispered when Rebecca pulled her out and wrapped her in a towel. "They said the optics are too risky." Rebecca held her tighter than ever before. "Then we built something new. Together." But the words felt hollow against the mountain of debt and uncertainty. Harlan's team had dug deep. They produced old social media posts, blurry photos from years ago. Even a former coworker willing to testify that Rebecca had once made the workplace uncomfortable with her sexuality. Maya warned them the cross-examination would be brutal. "They want to paint you as reckless, unprofessional, dangerous to business." In the courtroom the next day the tension was thick enough to choke on. Harlan took the stand first, calm and measured. "I have nothing against anyone's personal life. I simply cannot afford to lose millions because of one reckless moment." Then it was Rebecca's turn. Maya walked her through the questions gently, but Ms. Delgado's cross-examination was a scalpel. "Ms. Hayes, did you lock the door that night knowing the security cameras were rolling?" Rebecca's answer was quiet. "I locked the door because the bar was closed. I kissed Zuri because I love her. The camera was the last thing on my mind." The courtroom murmured. Zuri reached for her hand when she stepped down. For the first time the judge looked almost sympathetic. Closing arguments lasted until late afternoon. When the gavel finally fell, the ruling was a partial victory. Harlan could not force them to resign, but he could withdraw remaining funds and the bar would have to pay court costs. The Velvet Lounge would survive, but barely. Outside on the steps Zuri turned to Rebecca, tears mixing with the light rain that had started falling. "We did it. We fought and we're still standing." Rebecca nodded, but the exhaustion in her bones told a different story. Their love had survived the lawsuit, but at what price? Zuri's career was stalled, Rebecca's family still barely spoke to her, and the bar they both loved was hanging by a thread. That night they sat on the same stage where the kiss had started it all. The lights were off, the room empty. Zuri picked up the microphone one last time and sang the song she had written for Rebecca months ago. Soft, raw, honest. When the last note faded, Rebecca pulled her close. Whatever comes next, we face it together. No more hiding. Zuri smiled through fresh tears. No more hiding. But as they locked the door and stepped into the Chicago night, both knew the real battle wasn't over. Public opinion, family wounds, financial strain, all of it still waited. The kiss had been the spark. The fire was only beginning. 3 months later, the Velvet Lounge hosted its first Reclaim the Stage night. Rainbow flags fluttered outside. The crowd was larger than it had been in months, and Zuri stood on the stage again. This time not as a secret singer but as the woman who had fought a lawsuit and won the right to be seen. Rebecca watched from behind the bar, pride swelling in her chest even as the bank statements in her drawer reminded her how close they had come to losing everything. The media had moved on to newer scandals, but the scars remained. Rebecca's parents had started slow, tentative conversations again. Zuri's label had not come back, but a small independent producer had reached out after the trial, impressed by their courage. The GoFundMe had covered most of the legal fees, and the community had rallied in ways neither woman had expected. Yet every night when they closed the bar, Rebecca still felt the ghost of that security camera watching. Every time a new investor called Linda, the old fear flickered. Love had won the battle, but the war for normalcy continued. Zuri finished her set to thunderous applause and jumped down into Rebecca's arms. The kiss they shared now was public, deliberate, and completely unafraid. Cameras flashed, some from supporters, some from lingering skeptics, but neither woman flinched. Later, walking home hand in hand through the quiet streets, Rebecca asked the question that had haunted her since the morning the video dropped. Was it worth it? All the pain, the fear, the almost losing everything. Zuri stopped under a streetlight, turned to her, and smiled the same smile that had started everything. Every single second. Because now the world knows exactly who we are, and we're still here. They continued walking, the Chicago skyline glowing behind them. The future was uncertain. New lawsuits could come. Families could pull away again, careers could shift. But they were no longer walking it alone in the dark. In the end, as they stood together facing whatever came next, the question remained. Was silence ever truly safer than the truth? Or was the real risk never daring to kiss the person you love when the cameras were rolling? What would you choose if your entire future hung on that single moment?